the next talk. I have a loud voice generally anyway. Again, sharing a bit of a glimpse, how does Troopers review of talks work. I'm in the review board of many conferences, and at the majority of conferences, there's always this expectation of, well, it has to be like sexy hacking and super novel stuff. At Troopers, especially for track 3, we take a different approach. We are like, okay, what are the practical takeaways? Is the speaker going to cover something which is of real value in real organizations, in real environments? So when we looked at this one, and the folks from the EMW team Microsoft, as it's called, they jumped in and they were like, oh yeah, this is a problem. This is complex. Many people get this wrong. So it was clear we have to have this. Klaus, very happy you are here. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, welcome. Hello to my session. Let's talk about Entra ID and recovery and deletion. So thanks for having me here. So I know the Troopers conference from the history, but this is my first time be here as a speaker, and I'm really happy for that, and I enjoy the conference. So a few words regarding what was the idea to that talk. So the idea was that when I go to my customers, I see that backup and recovery is completely underrated, so they don't have this in their mind. So because the configuration and the objects, they are always there, but that's not reality, that's not true. They are not always there. And so we as an admin, we should take care on situations where maybe misconfigurations happen or something like that. Okay, so before we start, so a few words about my person. So on daytime, I'm a consultant at CGI. I'm spending time helping customers with identity stuff, hybrid stuff, Active Directory, and all these things. And after daytime, yes, I live in Murnau with my family in the mountains, in a vacation area. It's very beautiful there. And yes, we have a tiny zoo at home. And when you want to get in touch with me, so feel free, do not hesitate to contact me. So I'm in a community, blogging, LinkedIn, all these things, so we can discuss. I love this, I like this. So I have a quick agenda for today. So when we talk about backup and recovery in Entra ID, so a very important thing is, so what is the vendor perspective? So what do they say from Microsoft? So we will face this in a minute. And another topic, another question that I will hopefully answer in my session is, so what are the options? How can we back up things, and or we should better consider what can we restore or what can we not restore? And last but not least, another very important thing in my mind is so that we should prevent that it do not comes to object deletion. So this is the best protection, and do not let to commit to a deletion or for misconfiguration. And there are a couple of options in Entra ID that we have, and I will dig into this. So the first thing here is, so this slide is from Microsoft. And so what is the perspective from Microsoft? So it's very clear, it's very easy, it's very simple. What they say, you can find it here on the left side. So the only thing that the vendor will provide to an admin is they say, okay, this is my API, and this is my documentation. And you, as an admin, are responsible to take care on situation where you maybe run in. This can happen very time. So, and the customer responsibility is planning for restoring. So the admin must take care on his environment. So when we talk about today from backup and restore, we have file shares, we have content, data, all these things in our mind. But in Entra, we have a lot of very important configurations and topics which are similar valuable than data content. But the message here is that Microsoft will not back up anything or will help you when you have an object hard deleted or something like that. You cannot open a ticket or a case at Microsoft and ask them for support. This will not work. This cannot work because I don't know how many tenants Microsoft have. Is it 1 million, or is 5 million or whatever? Let us make a mathematic with 1 million. So when around the globe, 1% of each tenant admin makes a ticket open because of something has deleted, then Microsoft has every day 10,000 tickets. How should this work? So this makes clear why you as an admin are responsible for your stuff and for your topics. I can recommend reading this article. It's very helpful and it makes clear what Microsoft's opinion is here. When we consider making a backup in Entra ID, so the first thing is that we must identify what are our important topics, what are our jewels. So it's absolutely important to know what is my stuff in my tenant, because the question here or the situation here is that not every tenant is equally. So every company is different, they are all different, and of course every tenant is different than another. So when for example, an environment has security defaults, then backing up conditional access policies makes no sense because it is managed by Microsoft. Or on the other hand, when you have just a few conditional access policies, 3 or 5 or something like that, then maybe it can be enough to document them and not to make a backup or something like that. But when you have an environment with 50 conditional access policies, then you should know that it makes maybe sense to dump them out, to export them, or to consider any kind of a backup here. Yes, so this is the first thing, and this is not fixed, it's not standardized. So when the environments in Entra, in Microsoft Cloud, they are changing frequently. So when you establish a new feature in Entra, then maybe it can make sense now to consider backup, or what can be happening here, that I must go back to a previous state of that setup. Not for reading, I just want to give you an idea on what are we talking here. So what are typical technologies or policies that we should keep in mind. So the first thing here is a global access or global secure access policies. We have authentication profiles, we have security policies, we have all these things. And we can have a huge setup on GSA. And you should know that when here's maybe a misconfiguration will happen, that you must be able to go back to a previous state. The same with conditional access policies. I will talk about a little bit later about conditional access policies. This is the backbone of our Entra ID setup, and we have a couple of possibilities to back up or export and recover them. Another very important thing here is Entra Cloud Sync settings. So we have two synchronization technologies in a hybrid world. We have Cloud Connect on premises, and we have Cloud Sync in Entra. And what I mean here is Cloud Sync in Entra. This is a newer technology, and we have many configurations, many settings in that sync setup. We have transformation rules, we have attribute mappings, we have scope filters, all these things. And when we are all humans, and humans makes mistakes, and when maybe a misconfiguration will happen here, it can have a huge result in your environment. And this is why it is so important to document these things or to maybe better export this. Another very important thing here, for my opinion, is identity governance. Lifecycle workflows policies, for example. We have many, many options to specify tasks and actions in the Entra environment. And here maybe sometimes documentation is not enough because it is too much. And last but not least, administrative units. They are very, very important to find another level of administration, and they can be configured in a very complex way. We have dynamic membership rules, we have role assignments, we have all these things. And when you have a huge setup of your administrative units, then it can make sense to consider a few things on backing this up. So this is not complete, definitely. This is just to give you an idea on what other things that you should consider in your Entra environment. I want to give you an idea about the different object types in Entra ID. So not every object is the same object when it comes to deletion and recovery. So the objects are different handled when they are deleted. So the most easy one here is a user object. When a user is deleted, it goes to the recycle bin, and after 30 days, it is hard deleted. Hard deleted means it's gone, it's away. You cannot bring it back. You have no reference to that object. It is no possibility to bring this back. Within that 30-day time frame, the possibility to manually delete that object, then it becomes directly hard deleted. This is something that can be very, very important, but really, really funny is it when we go to security groups. So security groups, I don't know if you heard this. So from last year, after Ignite, Microsoft introduced that security groups have a soft deleted state. Before all the years, they don't have it. It is hard deleted immediately. And this can be very, very difficult or challenging for an administrator when he or she deletes that security group because it is referenced. For example, I have a conditional access policy here. So it is referenced not with his name, it's referenced with his ID. And when you have an export of that security group or documentation and you say, oh, I have deleted this by accidental. Now I bring it back. You can create it back, yes, but the ID is different. Yeah? So the name can be the same, all the other objects can be the same, but the important thing here is the ID, and this is not different. This is different. It's not the same. This makes it really, really challenging. And yes, the good news are that Microsoft has changed this in November last year, and now we have a recycle bin here, and the behavior with security groups is the same than with user groups. When we talk about objects, we have to talk about Microsoft 365 groups, not the same behavior than with user or security groups. We have that recycle bin and 30 days, and then hard deleted, etc., etc. Device objects are a little bit different, so they were hard deleted, and it is pretty new that they are now have also a recycle bin or an option that you can recover them. So in my opinion, this is not so critical than maybe, for example, security groups or conditional access policies when it comes to deletion with these objects. But now we have a recycle bin there, and with all the other objects now you can see it is clear every object has a recycle bin. So now we go into a little bit of funny situation. So when we talk about enterprise applications, so when you delete an enterprise application, it depends on what type of enterprise application it is. Is it a multi-tenant enterprise application or a single tenant? Multi-tenant means the service principal is in your tenant and the app registration is in the vendor tenant. And when you delete your service principal in your tenant, you don't have a recycle bin, but it is soft deleted and you have to recover it from the deleted item API. I will come to this in a few minutes with a demo. If that application is a single tenant application, then both service principal and the app registration is in your tenant. And then you cannot recover the deleted enterprise application object. You have to recover the app registration, and there is a recycle bin. This is funny, isn't it? So it's completely different depending on the object and what you are doing here. Then when we talk about app registrations, there's a recycle bin in the dashboard, and when you recover it, everything is there, the secrets, the permissions, and all these things. Administrative units, it's, as I have mentioned before, can be a very complex object with a couple of configurations, for example, dynamic membership rules. And when it comes to deletion with these objects, this can be not so funny at the end. And when it is deleted, we have not a recycle bin here. You cannot go to the dashboard in Entra Admin Center, go to the administrative unit. You will not see a recycle bin there. But it is soft deleted. You have to go to the deleted items API with graph calls, and you have to recover it. This is the situation today. Conditional access policies, and this is my last example here, it is also new from last year that they are now have a recycle bin in the Entra admin center. This is new. When you deleted an object before September last year, there is no recycle bin. You have to go to the deleted items API to recover that object. But the deletion state was forever as a soft deleted state. So there is no hard deleted directly. Yes, so when I make the presentation for 1 year, exactly from today for 1 year, so then we have a couple of things to discuss. We have to discuss that we must take care on security groups. They are immediately hard deleted. This is a really, really big risk. Later, we discuss how can we protect objects in Entra, like security groups, but in the last year, or I will say it with other words, so Microsoft, for my opinion, the job was not really sufficient in the last year to have that different behavior with different objects. But in the last year, they make a good job because things has changed to the right direction. So security groups, soft deleted, and all the other things. So now we are in a good condition to recover things. But for example, with enterprise application, you as an admin, you should know what are the tasks that you have to do. Okay, yes, I have an example here with a restore of an administrative unit. This is a recording in that case. So that what we see here is we have an administrative unit. It is class 8A objects. And as you can see in the dashboard, there is no recycle bin or something like that. And when we delete, for example, that administrative unit, we can directly recover it within that 30 days time frame that I have mentioned. For this, we have to go. In my example, I did it with a Graph Explorer here. We have to call an endpoint. That endpoint is the deleted items API with administrative unit. And when we call this with a get, we get a list of all the deleted administrative units. And in that list, now I can find my former deleted administrative unit. And we have to pick up the object ID from that object, and then we can use it with another graph call with the object ID, and in that case, will be recovered from the deleted items API. In that case, we have of course, not use get, it is a post, and then it is back in your Entra environment. So this is soft deleted. Soft deleted, as you can see, is very easy. So hard deleted is much more difficult. But as you can see here, when we bring it back from soft deleted, all the former settings, queries, and of course, role assignments from administrative level, they are there when we have this object recovered. So these are a few examples here for endpoints. So the deleted items API can be used for every object. User object, group object, all these objects. For user and for a group, it makes no sense because you have a recycle bin in your Entra admin center. But you can call them from a script, for example, with PowerShell, something like that, yeah, if it makes sense. So these are a couple of examples here. When you open that endpoint till that last slash here, you will see a list of all the endpoints that you have in the Graph Explorer here. Okay, but what can we do to ensure that when it comes to an accidental deletion or whatever the reason is that objects are deleted or misconfigured, there are a variety of possibilities, but what can we do beforehand? So, of course, we can make it manually. In the Entra admin center, we can make an export with all the things that we see in the dashboard with users or groups. This is possible for users and groups, not for conditional access policies. But in that case, we can create an export with a CSV file, for example. But for my opinion, a code-based approach is much better. And when we talk about code-based approach, we have to talk about PowerShell. The PowerShell is our friend in that case. It's very simple to export things from Entra. All what we can do in the Entra Admin Center can we do with the PowerShell. And when we talk about backup and restore, PowerShell is very powerful. This is just a small example here of a few commandlets, what we can do to export something. So this example works with a conditional access policy here, and it's very easy, it's very simple. This is not rocket science. But in that case, it's important that the JSON must be precise. And precise means not syntax error, precise means that when you have an export on a conditional access policy and you have a JSON with all the attributes and all these settings, and you say, oh God, I have deleted it, I must recover it, and then you want to recover it, it runs into an error because a couple of attributes here are read-only. Again, that conditional access policy and of course read-only attributes are the object ID and Entra managed attributes like created datetime, modified datetime, and a couple of other objects. So this is something that you must keep in mind when you back up your conditional access policies, for example. But it's important to have a full-blown JSON export. This is better than have nothing. Yeah? When you have this export and you want to roll back to a previous state, then you can mix it together with all the objects. You can remove the read-only attributes or something like that, or you can use the Entra Admin Center, the dashboard. I will show you later. There's a way how you can import an entirely JSON export. That's PowerShell. So who in the audience knows Entra Exporter? There's a couple of hands, sounds good. Perfect, I love this tool. It's from Meryl Fernando, and it's a smart tool, it's a tiny tool. It's not a backup tool, it's what the name says, it's an export tool, but you can create a JSON dump from your environment. Not all objects are included here, but for my opinion, the important objects are included, and it definitely makes sense to run with a scheduler or with an automated runbook or whatever on a frequent basis dump from all the objects in your environment. It's free, it's open source, you can use it, and I have an example from that tool, so you can use it. It's a PowerShell module, and it's just one commandlet, and you can parameterize this commandlet, and you can specify what option or what policy you want to export. And what I did here with my demo is I put that Entra Exporter commandlet into a few lines of codes. And what I do is I have a server, and on that server I create a Git. It's not a GitHub, a Git, a local repository, and I write all the policies into that Git. And then I can, with another script, use this Git to recover a policy from a previous state. Not recover the policy, recover the JSON. This is very helpful, and I can show you what I mean here in that case. So you can find all these things in my repository. You can download this. And this is not rocket science. These are just a few commandlets here with PowerShell. And as you can see here on the left side, this is read local Git and write local Git, and a couple of variables here with a timestamp and all these things. And so the Entra Exporter magic is here. This is the commandlet. I will specify a path, and then we say, okay, what type of category we want to export from Entra. This is conditional access. We can specify user groups or AUs or all. This all can make sense. Okay, so then when that script had run, we put all the things in that Git local, and it detects here that I have changed conditional access policy. And now, later, we can say, okay, we want to see what is in our local Git. And with the other file here, we have to specify a couple of variables here again. And so it's very easy, very simple, and also not rocket science. We go through that Git and we get a list of all of our exports that we have former created with the Entra exporter, and then we can select one of these backups, and then our JSON extract from that Git is recovered to my file system here. In my case, I have it in my temp folder. The name is restored Entra version, Entra identity, and so on. And so the policies are here in that subfolder. And this is cool. So now you are ready to recover. It is important to know every time, okay, I have a backup in my backend. This is absolutely a requirement for my opinion. And you can have it here with administrative units. There's a variety of other objects. So we can see in that version 3.01, this was updated for Merrill for 6 months. Now you can export PIM, for example. PIM settings, PIM roles, and all these things. This is cool. And you have this in on your file server, can make lots of sense. Cool, this is the Entra exporter, but next question, who knows M365 DSC? Okay, sounds good, sounds good. This is it's a very, very cool tool, what I think. It is not directly a backup tool or recovery tool, but it's a tool to be on the safe side. You can use it to bring configurations out of your tenant. For example, you can mirror tenants, you can compare tenants. You can compare tenants from one tenant to another or from a blueprint to another tenant. And when your tenant, your target tenant, is not exactly then the blueprint, you can specify actions. One action can be, I will notify an admin. I will reconfigure the setting automatically. All these things are possible. So this is a cool tool, but to be honest, you must be fluent with PowerShell and DSC. And this is sometimes not really funny. But you must be very deep in PowerShell and all these things when it comes to troubleshooting and all these things. But when you have it up and running, it's cool. So Microsoft announced for a few months that they now have the Tenant Configuration Management API. And this is a successor of that M365 DSC. But I don't know why Microsoft is saying this, because you don't have that feature set, then you have it on the M365 DSC technology. At the moment, you can, with tenant configuration management, you can create a, how should I say, you can create a blueprint, a snapshot, but to do this, you must use the PowerShell. But when you have this, you can go to the Entra Admin Center and can then create a monitor. And that monitor is a drift detection of what you have exported before and your real world. This is cool, but that's it at the moment. I can show it to you. Where's my mouse? Sorry. Okay, so when we switch to the Entra Admin Center here, we have governance stuff. This morning it was here. Tenant governance previews. So as you can see, it is in public preview, so it's not a good thing when we finger point Microsoft, because the product is not complete. It is under development. But what I want to show you here is that monitors preview. So here, I cannot configure a snapshot here in the Entra Admin Center. I must use it on the PowerShell. But when I have it from the PowerShell side, I have a JSON. And then I can pick up that JSON and I can put it here into a new monitor. When we have that monitor specified, we have that location where the JSON must be included. I will not complete the setup here. I can show you one of my monitors that I have here, already configured. So these are two monitors, and I have the monitor results. It runs every 6 hours at the moment, and it will detect drifts. Drifts from your current setup to that snapshot. And that drift detection here is not so powerful than you have it in M365 DSC. So there's no notification. All these things, they are not here at the moment. But again, it is public preview, and I'm curious to see what Microsoft will add to that technology. So I have that drift detection here, and I have changed that excluded users option in the conditional access policy. And when I open this here, you can see these are the settings. I have currently, in the current setup, there's Skinner and Mr. X, and I have added here, no, this is desired, sorry. Desired is that Anna must be in that policy, but there is a drift, and this is, something has changed here. So this is in Entra at the moment, and we will see how Microsoft will extend that functionality. When they say it is a successor to M365 DSC, then they must put in a lot of features into that technology. So who have heard about backup and recovery in Entra ID? So pretty cool. Yeah. So this is very smart, very tiny, and very simple to administer. And it's also pretty new from March this year. And P1 or P2 license is required here with that feature. And it makes what the name says. We can keep an eye on it. So at the moment, you cannot configure how often backups happen, and you cannot configure how long you will have that retention time for that backup and all these things. This is not possible at the moment. When I go to the policies area here, I can see, so Microsoft say, okay, it's 5 days. And last week, I was in that dashboard, it was 5 backups. But when we count them, we see, oh, these are not 5 backups, these are 7 backups. So things are changing under the hood here. I don't know what has happened. But what I will say, this technology, what I love and what I think can be very important for an administrator is the drift detection. You can have that differential report. When you select a backup and when you say, okay, I want to see from that backup changes to my current environment, then this will be given to you as a differential report. In the backup blade, we select one backup here, and then we create a differential report. So it's not rocket science, very easy to run. And when we go to one of that differential reports, I cannot run this now because it runs 10 or 20 minutes or something like that. But at the end, when it is completed, it will say, okay, completed, of course. And then you have the calculated objects here. And you can see exactly what has happened in your environment. And this can make lots of sense to see on attribute level what are the changes here that somebody has made in the history. This is another thing that I want to show you. We can specify what we want to take action on here. So do we want to have all objects, or do we just want to have conditional access policies, for example, or groups, or any other object? So there's a good documentation from Microsoft on how you can use it. But what is reality? Reality is that you maybe come to your office on the Monday morning and something has happened to your conditional access policy. You say, this was different from Friday. And when you are not sure what has happened, then you can make a differential report and you can see, okay, who has changed something here. This is not how your environment should work. I hope you have a change system and all these things, and 4 eyes principle and all these things. But in reality, things are sometimes different. Yes, this is a cool feature, I think, and I don't know what Microsoft will add to that feature here, but I think maybe you can customize the time frame and all these things. So I will give you one demo. I mentioned before that we have conditional access policy recovery and that we have that behavior, that we have read-only attributes in a JSON file that we cannot import, for example. When we go to our conditional access area in the Entra Admin Center, we have policies here. And this, by the way, is the recycle bin. When we go to the policies here, and we can upload a policy file in that case, and this must be a JSON file. And this, it doesn't matter where this JSON file comes from. Entra exporter, your PowerShell stuff, or whatever you are using here, this doesn't matter. You can use any JSON file which represents a conditional access policy. And when I select this one here, as an example, and when I then save it, I run into an error, and that error is clear. ID is a read-only field, and other fields are also read-only. So this will not work in that way when we save it. But when we use review and create, it's more tolerant. It will remove all the read-only attributes. And then when we use this, a new conditional access policy is created from that JSON export, and all of our settings are included in that conditional access policy. So that is important for you to know. So it doesn't matter how I have my backup from my conditional access policies that made, I can reintegrate it into my system. Okay, so we discussed soft deleted. After soft deleted, it is hard deleted. What's happened when it is hard deleted? Bad luck for the admin. It's real world, but when you have an export with the Entra exporter, for example, it can be helpful to recreate that object with that former exported information. But we must recreate that object. We must recreate a new object. And this procedure will not work with every kind of object. But with an administrative unit, for example, it works very well. So we recreate that object, and then the important point here is that we will have a new object ID with that new object. What's then? Then we must have that JSON export, and we must target with that new object ID, all the configurations, and to put it with a patch command from the Graph API back to that administrative unit. For this, we must specify the object ID from that new object that we have created with all that settings here. You can see you can make it with a dynamic query or with roles and with all these things. When you go into that folder that Entra exporter created, you have a couple of JSON files there, and each of this JSON file is a representation of your content. We live in 2026, it's not practical, to be honest, but this is nothing that you do twice a week. It is just for an accidental situation when somebody has something deleted in your environment, and then you can use it. And this can be then very helpful. I have an example on this, how you can do it step by step. You can find it in my blog on how you can recover roles and all these things to a deleted object. And this is a way that you have to do, that you can do. But in that case, again, the prerequisite for this is that you have your export. And I know I repeat this here, and Microsoft will help. When you make a call out and say, I have a hard deleted object, then they will say, we cannot help, unfortunately. Okay, this is the best recovery option to make sure that it not comes to a restore situation. What are options in Entra ID to protect objects, to prevent that they are misconfigured or deleted? One way is to use PIM groups. You can do this. Should you do this? I will say no, because this is not for what PIM groups are made. They are made to have that group here and to have multiple roles fixed assigned to that group. And that group is eligible to a user. And that user picks up that group membership as eligible, and he gets automatically all that roles. This is the reason for groups. This is not, should not be used for protection, but it can be used for protection, because when you have a group, or yes, you have a group, for example, and you put that group into PIM, it is protected. Only a global admin and a privileged role admin can touch that group, nobody else. Normally, you have a couple of other roles in Entra, they have the permission to touch groups. Intune admin, SharePoint admin, Exchange admin, all these admins can touch groups. And this can be sometimes not so helpful for you. When you don't want to have this, it's an option to use this, but for my opinion, this is not the reason why we have PIM for groups. And, by the way, PIM is a P2 feature, and each member in a PIM group must have a P2 license. When you use this for such reason, you should keep in mind that you have a license topic here. But a much better option to protect objects are RMAU, Restricted Management Administrative Units. Very simple, very easy to implement. I can show you in a minute what I'm talking here. So when we go to the administrative unit area, so my user account here, so it's Klaus. I'm a global admin. Yeah? And when I protect an administrative unit, it is protected for everybody, also for global admins. No global admin can touch that object in that protected administrative unit. We can see this in an example here. I have that protected stuff called like protected objects example. And so when I touch that user, this user is in that administrative unit. I'm not allowed to change anything here because I'm not in that role list of that administrative unit. And the important thing here is that this information is not just belonging to that administrative unit, it's an information which is stored on the user object. So when we go back to the root here, and when we then open the user blade, and when I now go to that user, I want to touch it, and now I am not in an administrative unit, I'm in the user blade. I am not allowed to touch this. Now you can say, oh, you are a global admin, you can give the permission to do these things, of course. But when you have global admins in your environment, which acts like this, then you have another problem. And by the way, you can set up an alert rule and an action group and an alert rule to detect changes on an administrative unit, for example. Yeah? When you don't trust your global admins. But I have it in my daytime as a consultant. I have customers, they have objects with security groups which must be protected because they have permissions for that groups to sensitive areas in Microsoft 365 or etc. and all these things. And then it can make a lot of sense to protect this. Yes, these are RMAUs. Another thing what is very helpful, in my opinion, are protected actions. So are you all familiar with protected actions? Please read. Protected actions in Entra ID are a combination of a couple of technologies. We can specify in conditional access an authentication context. And this authentication context can be specified on a conditional access policy as a target. On one side. On the other side, I have actions in Entra ID, and one action is, for example, to configure cross-tenant settings or make hard deletions. And when that action happens in the signal logic, it is detected that via the authentication context, that conditional access policy is fired. And all the conditions from that policy must be given, and you must have a grant from the conditional access policy to make this action. I could show you what I mean here. So the first thing that we have to do is that we are in the conditional access policy dashboard, and here we have our authentication context. And that authentication context it's just a string. It's a label, a tag, or call it you want it. It's just a string. You can free define it. And in my case, I named it protected deleted items. And then I have a conditional access policy. In that conditional access policy, so let me pick up this one, for example, we have the target section, and in the target section we do not specify apps or whatever, we specify an authentication context. And this authentication context points to that, or this conditional access policy points to that authentication context. This is one side what we have to configure. The other thing is that when we go to the roles and admins, to the protected actions, we have the option to add a protected action here. And the first thing that we have to do is that we must specify the authentication context that we have configured in conditional access. And in my case, I use that protected deleted items. So, and then we must specify the permissions. And these are the permissions that I have mentioned before. And one very important permission here is deleted items, delete. What does this mean? It's hard deleted or hard deletion. When you specify a policy with that setting, with the protected action, then you can specify that you maybe do not want that your admins configure or make hard deletions outside your company network, or you want to prevent that they use their smartphone to configure these things. So all these things can be configured in a conditional access policy. And with that we combine both technologies, very, very powerful. Or you can say, okay, I don't want to have anybody that makes hard deletions, so let me run it 30 days and then it's gone. Why should somebody make a hard deletion? Sometimes it makes no sense, and then you can prevent it for everybody with that protected action in combination with the conditional access policy. Yes, there's cool stuff to protect objects in your environment. So another very important thing here is smart alerting for import resources, for important resources. So I wrote an article on that. So this is what I've mentioned before. You can keep an eye on a couple of objects, and you can specify an action group, which are a couple of administrators, which will be notified when something happens in your audit log or sign-in log, etc. And when you want to see this, so we run a little bit out of time here, when you want to see this, you can go to that article, you can read it, and this can make definitely sense. Coming back to that example from that administrative unit from before, you specify, okay, this is restricted management administrative unit. I don't want to have a global admin that he has permission here, and when the global admin is a smart admin, he say, I don't want to, I will touch it, and I give him the permission. You can say, okay, I want to notify my management or whoever. Yes, this is the summary of that talk. So let me go back to the agenda question from the beginning. So yes, you must keep in mind that Microsoft's standpoint is clear. The tenant admin is responsible to define what is important here. And this is not fixed. This is like the zero trust journey. It's a journey. Your environment is not fixed. It's dynamical. You implement new features and all these things, and you should always keep in mind, oh, how can I go back to a previous state? This is what I mean. Regularly reassess your jewels from your tenant and see what is a good backup approach. You cannot back up everything. You cannot export, for example, that governance stuff, lifecycle workflows, but in that case, maybe a proper documentation is enough to be prepared. And yes, last but not least, it's important to see what is important, what is my configuration, and to be a little bit more proactive instead of reactive. A little bit to read for you, so I will highlight. So this new articles here from Microsoft, this is the Unified Tenant Configuration API, backup and recovery. So this is from the community, this is from my blog, 2 articles that I have mentioned. So feel free to learn, read this on your way home maybe. And yes, with that slide, I will say thank you very much. I'm done and open for questions.
Thank you, Klaus, for your insights on this. And as you mentioned, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Yes, 1 second.
Thank you. Thanks for your session, really great. I have one question on the restore of an admin unit. Does it restore any static assignments too, or only static assignments? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
All the things.
Perfect. Any other questions? Yes.
About the Microsoft provide a new feature backup and recovery. There is a as a file retention. So is it able to download from the Microsoft website? I mean, it's automatic backup, right? But can we download it and we recover memory because it only save a file backup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Before I want to more backup, is it possible?
No, not at the moment. So at the moment, Microsoft says 5. We have seen this is 7 at the moment. I don't know why we have 7. I don't know. But you cannot do anything with these things. You cannot store it everywhere else. It's in the it's in the platform. It's in Entra, and you can just recover it. And this is all what you can do.